H-2B are closed because of the weather. Monday, Air Force veteran Ken Austin, as people try to get anything they need before another round of... Okay, you saw this today too, probably. Long lines wrapping around grocery stores in Austin as people try to get anything they need before another round of freezing rain hits our area tonight. Several grocers like H-2B are closed because of the weather. Monday, Air Force veteran Ken Everly, 82, married 62 years, laid bundled up in blankets, without heat, without the breathing machine keeping him alive. His son-in-law posted on Facebook.
I don't know where it came from, but a generator showed up.
The donated generator brought the breathing machine and heat back on.
We have about 20 gallons of whole milk.
Vault Coffee House in Roanoke gave away milk to families without power. Texans are huddling up, bundling up, snuggling up together because temperatures inside are falling down, way down.
36 degrees inside the house, and outside it is only 1 degree.
Still huge numbers of homes and businesses in North Texas without power, many for an extended period of time. If you can see my breath. Inside the house, there is, where'd it go? All of the condensation on the ceiling for some reason has now become icicles. I don't even know how it ended up on the ceiling.
Boy, if that's not an proof, can you believe what we're seeing in Dallas? Those are icicles on the ceiling fan. Thomas sent us this picture from his apartment in Uptown. It looks more like the inside of a freezer. You know, the power started going out more than 48 hours ago, and we still don't have a clear answer when it'll be restored.
This orange line is how much power is available, and it shot way up here. That's the best we've seen in a couple of days. We were thinking, hey, this looks good. Since then, it has just been steadily coming down. So we were told at about 3:30 this afternoon that 2 to 3 million Texans were without power. This is about the time we were told that. If you look across here, more people have been kicked off since then. So that was 2 to 3 million Texans without power. We've only gone down, so there's more people who have been kicked off of power tonight.
Every hour.
More people have been kicked off since then. So that was 2 to 3 million Texans without power. We've only gone down, so there's more people who have been kicked off of power tonight.
Every hour that goes by brings more anxiety and anger.
Not to mention desperation. Some families don't have water or a warm meal. They're isolated at home without transportation or a fully charged phone.
Tonight, the deadly winter blast and the new threat on the move right now. That monster storm leaving at least 28 people dead and millions without power in the record-shattering cold.
This is a very important video. Please get this out to everybody you know as quickly as possible. Knowledge is power. It always has been. A little bit of knowledge can save you a whole lot of grief, and in this case, a whole pile of cash, especially when you're talking about this massive Texas power outage affecting 3 to 4 million people. Here's the deal in parts of Texas, because it's a catch-22 scenario that a lot of people aren't thinking about. And it's a serious catch-22 that, if I didn't know any better, almost seems orchestrated to deliberately bring people not just to their knees, but completely take them out, either physically or economically, by literally bankrupting them. The general consensus is that if you have power, you're the fortunate one. Well, yes and no. And they say if you don't have power, you're the unfortunate one. There's some truth to both of these, but it's not the whole truth, and that's where the catch-22 comes in. Before the power outages and power shortage, typical megawatt-hour prices were down to $30 to $50. That's 3 to 5 cents per kilowatt hour. If you take a look at this Electric Reliability Council of Texas real-time price chart from their website, it's now costing $9,000 for a megawatt hour, which is $9 per kilowatt hour. So if you're going from 3 to 5 cents for residential areas to $9, that's a huge jump. This is why everybody keeps saying that energy prices have spiked 10,000%. So if your power is out, you may be suffering in the cold and you may be a little hungry, but these prices won't immediately affect you when you get your next utility bill. But if you do have power, it's probably a good idea to take a quick walk through your house. And I mean quick, because the longer you wait, the more it's costing you. Unplug everything that you don't need to use. Everything. Here's one example. That 100 watt costing you fractions of a penny per hour to watch is now costing you about 90 cents to $1 an hour. So imagine what it's costing you to run your refrigerator, freezer, oven, washing machine, microwave, and your central heating unit. You could conceivably be costing yourself $400 to $500 a day by not monitoring your energy usage. And we gotta face this. This is the negative reality of being connected to and reliant on the grid. If the typical energy bill is $200 to $300 a month during this time of year and people are barely making it at that level, can you imagine the economic devastation of a $2,000 or $3,000 bill? And earlier I mentioned that this is just the direct and immediate cost of energy. There are going to be some lagging effects that we're all going to start feeling at the gas pump and especially in the grocery store. Check out this article from Fox 7 in Austin. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller issued a dire warning Tuesday about the statewide impact of the winter storm on agriculture and the food supply chain. And really not just statewide, we're talking about nationwide here. And we've been talking for months about the coming food shortages, so this isn't a shocker to all of you who've been preparing. And if you haven't been preparing, now is a good time to start before everybody else starts panicking. Miller says farmers and ranchers across the state are seeing devastating effects from the cold weather on livestock, feed, and agriculture products. As Texas Agriculture Commissioner, I'm issuing a red alert regarding agriculture and our food supply chain here in the state of Texas. I'm getting calls from farmers and ranchers across the state reporting that the interruptions in electricity and natural gas are having a devastating effect on their operations. My question is, how many other states that receive these food supplies from Texas are also going to be affected? He said, in just one example, dairy operations are dumping $8 million worth of milk down the drains every day because the plants that process that milk don't have power. Grocery stores are already unable to get shipments of dairy products. Store shelves are already empty. We're looking at a food supply chain problem like we've never seen before, even with COVID-1984. And guys, don't look for this to stop anytime soon. Remember, the World Economic Forum has made it very clear that they fully intend to initiate the Great Reset, and the UN's Agenda 2030 is always on the table. One thing you need to understand about government is that they want people depending on them.
Be made widely available. So we can't forego the important work that needs to be done between now and then to get our country through the worst wave yet in this pandemic.
Yeah, indeed, the governor did, and a number of other state officials who were there with him. Cynthia, just as the pictures you just showed there a moment ago, we got an idea from the governor, really the scope of this winter emergency that we're in. Not just right here in North Texas, but I'm talking statewide. It's much, much broader than just electricity and just water as well. But let's highlight some of the things and tell you kind of where we are right now. Governor Abbott says 1.2 million households have had power restored already. I know that's not good news for those of you still sitting in the dark and still sitting in the cold, but progress is being made. Here's something else encouraging, especially for a lot of folks in South Texas. The South Texas Nuclear Project. This is south of Houston in Matagorda County, just due south there off 288 in Bay City, Texas. This is a nuclear power plant down there. It is going to start generating more power. The operators there have restarted the Unit 1 reactor. They're working to reconnect now to the grid. They can get a lot of power back onto the grid as well. Natural gas supplies. Here's something else that few of us want to even imagine at this point. Governor Abbott signed an order requiring all the natural gas produced in Texas and refined in Texas, it must remain in Texas right now because we ship a lot of it out. That's what we do in this energy state here. But it has to remain here so utilities can use that. Another staggering statistic, 7 million Texans right now across the state are under a boil water notice. And a fascinating thing from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which was there with the governor. So many of us are dripping our faucets right now. The TCEQ says that the state saw peak water usage that is similar to summer demand because we're dripping our pipes to keep them from freezing. And there was one comment the governor made. I want you to hear this here. One comment he made that is really hard to imagine, but he put it in words. Take a listen.
Every source of power that the state of Texas has been compromised.
Gentlemen, when's the power coming back on?
So that is precisely what I was talking about earlier. That is the question that I am asking and that the public needs an answer to from ERCOT. ERCOT is the organization that is operating the transmission across the entire state of Texas. ERCOT has not been transparent about this. We, all of us, need answers and transparency from ERCOT to make sure that people get the answers they need, but more importantly, get the power they need.
How much evil do you have to do good?
None evil.
With a growing concern over the notion that chemical and biological weapons were unaccounted for and could potentially fall into the hands of terrorists, the Department of Defense wanted to test the nation's readiness for such an emergency. In June 2001, the DoD conducted a war game called Operation Dark Winter.
Dark Winter was a major exercise that was done prior to 9/11, earlier in 2001, to look at the effects of a biological terror event. And it was kind of a scary scenario. We would lose a lot of people if a really effective bioterror event occurred.
The simulation evaluated the government's ability to respond and communicate with the public, and the exercise even included mock news reports.
Since the diagnosis of 20 smallpox cases in Oklahoma City 12 days ago, hundreds have now died, thousands have become infected.
We had to, think about things like quarantines and martial law, and things like that. All of a sudden, our system wasn't our system anymore because we had this terrible thing going on, and we had to change. We had to, change the way we thought about things. We had to change the way the military interrelated with the civilian world, and it was really hard.
And the conclusion is there were tens of millions of deaths, no commerce between states, no airplane flying for 6 months, and war between Oklahoma and Texas.
Today, the world is confronting a public health emergency unlike any we've seen in over a century. We are facing a highly transmissible and deadly virus which not only claims lives but also disrupts the very foundations of our society. The American healthcare system is being taxed to the limit. Our economy is spiraling downward, and our population is being paralyzed by fear, stemming from a lack of a coordinated response and a dearth of accurate, clear communication about the path forward. Our window of opportunity is closing. If we fail to improve our response now, based on science, I fear the pandemic will get worse and be prolonged. There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It will be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza. Without better planning, 2020 would be the darkest winter in modern history.
Truthfully, we remain in a very dark winter. Infection rates are up 34%. More people are being hospitalized because of COVID than ever before. We're up to between 3,000 and 4,000 deaths per day as we approach a grim milestone of 400,000 deaths in America. That's staggering, to state the obvious. I know the pain that so many of you are experiencing right now. Starting by sitting down for breakfast this morning and staring at an empty chair on the kitchen table.
winter power disaster impacts groceries and supplies.
Power outages, water issues, and snow and ice-covered roads have impacted grocery stores during this week's weather and power disaster. NBC5 crews noted limited supplies in stores that are able to open. So what does that mean for the essentials moving forward? We know there's going to be supply chain problems, but we're not going to know how bad they are quite literally until it thaws, said Michael Davis, an economist and SMU Cox School of Business professor. I guarantee there's people on the front lines of this right now thinking, what do we know? Added Davis. What produced has been frozen and has to be thrown out. What stores have had their pipes leak all over something important? It's going to be through the next week before we get a rough handle for what this supply chain has done.
Let's give you a look first at the roads right here. We're off of 360 and Trinity. So let's pan over here so you can see 360. A lot more people out on the roads right now. Traffic looking good. People, for the most part, taking it slow, going about 45 miles or so on the highway, where crews have come in and at least cleared one lane through. The trickier spot like we've been talking at gas stations. Some of them are either out of gas or they're running low. Others of them are fully stocked. It was taking some people 20 minutes to get a full tank of gas at this one look where we spoke to power. They were trying to fill up their gas cans to run their generators. And we spoke to people who have now been without power going on 3 days.
Well, it started I had 3 cats and a dog, some kids. We lost power, put the kids in a different location with family members, and then we've been in the closet with my pets. Like candlelight, we put a sheet up over the door. But today it's just we're trying to get up to Plano to my parents' house. It's just ridiculous. And we can't find gas. I know what city I'm in right now, to be honest.
Hell. Yeah, hell. Sure hell. Yeah. And it's that's why I say somebody should be held accountable, because they was like, what? We're gonna set up grid off and all this crap to conserve power.
I mean, I think those 2 stories, that's just a snapshot of what people are dealing with here in North Texas and all across the state. But again, if you're out and about, if you're looking for gas, you're looking for food, it's really, touch and go depending on where you're at and what locations have power. Like I said, these restaurants behind me here have been closed for most part of the last couple of days, but then just down the street, we were finding places that were open and gas stations that seemed like they were fully stocked. So that is just what people are dealing with as we go on another day with this ordeal. We'll send it back to you.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. I think America as a whole in 1973 and 1974, not just my view, but obviously the administration, missed the opportunity to deal with the energy crisis that was before us. For a long time, our entire energy policy came down to cheap oil. This is an opportunity, what used to be long-term problems, be they in the healthcare area, energy area, education area, fiscal area, tax area, regulatory reform area, things that we had postponed for too long that were long-term are now immediate and must be dealt with. And this crisis provides the opportunity for us, as I would say, the opportunity to do things that you could not do before. The good news, I suppose, if you want to see a silver lining, is the problems are big enough that they lend themselves to ideas from both parties for the solution.
The pandemic has radically changed the world as we know it, and the actions we take today as we work to recover will define our generation.
It's the time to think what history would say about this crisis.
2020 has been challenging on a lot of levels, as economic, environmental and societal frailties have been laid bare. But it's also proved that when we need to, we can act rapidly and restructure our lives.
Recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine, but there is no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout.
You don't want to go back to the status quo that you had before simply because it was the status quo that got us here.
With everything falling apart, we can reshape the world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face. And that's why so many are calling for a great reset. A great reset? That sounds more like buzzword bingo masking some nefarious plan for world domination. Hands up, this kind of slogan hasn't gone down well. But all we really want to say is that we all have an opportunity to build a better world. And it's not surprising that people who've been disenfranchised by a broken system and pushed even further by the pandemic will suspect global leaders of conspiracy. But the world's not that simple. Every one of us has differing priorities, values, and ideas. That's part of why solutions are so hard to come by, and why we all need to be involved in the decision-making. Because whether it's politicians, CEOs, academics, activists, or you, we're all about getting people together, even those you may not like, to sit down at the table and develop solutions that work for all of us. But
we need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work. That trust is hard to come by.
it's time for people to work together, listen to each other, and build this trust so we can move towards a better world. And we really need one. Because while the pandemic affects us all, it's clear it affects some more than others.
The first people who are hit are the people at the front, those who are vulnerable. It is those on the front line who take it first, and that is simply unacceptable.
See, at the start of 2020, 1% of the world's population owned 44% of the wealth. And since the start of the pandemic, billionaires have increased theirs by more than 25%, whilst 150 million people fell back into extreme poverty. And with climate change set to dwarf the damage caused by the pandemic, the message from 2020 should be abundantly clear.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead. This obsession that we have had with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency.
But no one can do this alone, and top-down approaches won't get us anywhere, because everything we've learned in our work has shown us that diverse voices lead to better results. And it's for these reasons that the Forum talks about something called stakeholder capitalism, which would shift businesses away from just profit. Because
if we want to change where the focus of our recovery will go, then we need a new dashboard for the new economy. And that needs to encompass people, planet, prosperity, and institutions.
Giving people a real stake in the economy and putting well-being before growth. And that's all about getting the right people in the right place at the right time.
We must rebuild our relationship with nature for the survival of the peoples and our planet.
We have a window of time which is closing, and we need everybody who cares to get together and find solutions now.
It's the people who have great ideas and who share them with others. They're the ones who are shaping the future. So if you want to be a part of the change, then tune in, turn on, and get involved. Follow the Davos Agenda, right here, online, on YouTube.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Behold, I have foretold you all things. Take ye heed, watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is. And what I say unto you, I say unto all. Watch.
Please, wake up.
Here I am, reveal yourself to me. For you have been wherever you be, my Savior always.
So we don't go with Mr. J, so I had to take that part down. You only go with the Creator only and nobody else. The Creator and no one else, not Mr. J.